Hello.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know. It kicked me out.
That was so weird. It was working for like a second and I saw you, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. Okay, there you are. Oh my
Yeah.
God, look at your hair. You look
I know.
so good.
Thanks. It's a little bright, but I love it. So
Oh, it's so you. It's definitely you. Oh my God, it's been years.
I know. I I was thinking about it the other day and I was actually talking with my boyfriend about it, like how random it was that I literally hopped on a plane to go and stay at someone's house that I had never met before, like
Yeah,
met on the internet
definitely.
and it sounds crazy now, but like at that point in my life, it was totally what I needed, It just like I
Yeah,
needed the adventure. So
definitely. Definitely. Oh, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I'm so nervous right now. This is my first episode. I have never done this before. I was just like, shit, let me start a podcast. Why not? And I couldn't think of a better person to introduce a podcast with than you. I feel
I am
like
so excited.
I'm so excited for you to be here. I feel like whenever I was at that point in my life before was when I like randomly asked you to publish a book with me. And for those of you tuning in, I met Alisha in a Facebook group in
For
2017.
photography, like totally unrelated to anything poetry.
Completely unrelated. And when I was looking for content the other day, I went through all of our old Facebook messages so I could like screenshot the message of me asking you.
Oh,
And I was just like, how random is that? Like, I don't know if today I would ever ask somebody to do that or if I would have the balls to like actually do what we did, but it was so spur of the moment. And I'm so glad that, we did that. So I was just like full circle moment,
well,
a new chapter in my life has to be her.
yeah. So we went from book to podcast and here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I'm
So
excited for you though. I think that this will be like just, I don't know, your personality and your love of people in life. Like, I think that this is such a good fit for you. So
oh,
I'm
thank
excited. I think
you.
it's going to be an awesome adventure for you.
Thank you. Oh, that means so much. And just like with the book, even if nobody listens to this, it's
It's for you.
therapeutic. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely therapeutic and I can like go back and listen to everything, but I do hope that people listen to it because, this is going to be my full-time career now. So,
Well,
um
I will be
let's
listening. So you at least have one listener.
I love you. I love you. So I guess let's just jump into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and where you are at in life right now.
Yeah, so I am a mom to two beautiful little kiddos and a stepmom to a little girl that's only 9 months older than my daughter. So it's pretty
Oh,
perfect because they're little BFFs. And I mean, even before we, started dating and all that stuff, we would hang out as friends and so they've pretty much grown up together, which is pretty awesome. But they're fun. They definitely use up a majority of my time. Just doing the kid stuff, but it's been awesome. I would say that of all of the things in my life that I've done, like being a mom is probably been the most fulfilling and the best part of my life, which is awesome. So they're uh they're pretty great. But currently, I work at a software company, and so I do my creative stuff on the side where I can, and just living life, just
aw.
living in. Yeah, it's been quite the adventure since we wrote the book. Like, kind of preparing for this, I started thinking back and um my whole life was in shambles when we wrote that book together.
Oh, girl. Yes. Yeah. I remember the conversations that we had like leading up to like picking out all of the poems and like how we wanted the style of everything. Like that whole process of getting the book together was the only thing that I felt like I had control over in my life. And it was the best and most perfect outlet for that time.
Yes. No, I agree. Like I remember talking with you even when I was in Albuquerque, like visiting you and stuff, and just how hard life it was for you at that moment too. And it was just like, it felt like that was just where I needed to be, you know? I mean, it just felt like it was meant to be because I have to tell you, so my little guy, he just turned 5, and my ex-husband asked for a divorce when he was a week old. We
Oh my
were home from the
God.
hospital for 1 week and he asked for a divorce, and I was blindsided. I'm like, hey, we've been together for 7+ years. Like
Yeah.
you don't even want to like try and work it out. Like you don't like you just want to be done. So of course at that point, like my question was like, did you cheat? Like
Hmm.
what could the reason possibly be? Like we just had a baby. And it was about 2 weeks later that I discovered he'd been having an affair with someone that he worked with throughout my pregnancy. And so when my son was 3 weeks old, we officially decided like that was it. We called it,
Yeah.
and we were done. And so that in and of itself was challenging. I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and so going through the divorce process, separating from him, selling our house, like I think the hardest part for me, like you said, was like the only thing you had control over in that moment. I think that's what was hard for me is like, not that I had my whole life mapped out, but you have like at least a loose, idea of what your life is going to look like and what next steps are and whatever. And in that moment, my life was chaos. Everything I thought I knew was gone. Like
Hmm.
all of the plans that I had were gone.
Yeah,
And it
for
was just me
sure.
and 2 tiny kids and just like, okay, well, what's next? We got to figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so it was pretty crazy. And then we wrote the book, and it was just hard in general. My daughter was still
Mhm.
at an age where she was still pretty needy. And then a newborn obviously is
Yeah.
pretty needy. And so it was just a lot of stress and a lot of like, at that particular moment, right before I came out to see you, my ex had started, just being a little bit more flaky with like taking the kids and things like that. So I just felt like I was drowning. And so I told him, I'm like, hey, I don't care what, what you have going. You're taking the kids. I'm going to Albuquerque for the weekend. And,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I came home, picked up my kiddos, and 2 days later, he had lost his job like a couple weeks before that. And a couple days after I got home from Albuquerque, I went to go pick up my kids and discovered that he had a full-blown heroin addiction. And he was doing it
What?
in the apartment with, I mean, he had my kids like so he was watching them while I was at work, obviously, because he didn't have a job.
Oh
So
my God.
I went to go pick up my kiddos. And this was seriously like 2-3 days after I got back from the trip where we did our book signing. So I had no idea before any of that. And I went to go pick up my kids and he was acting really weird. And I found a bunch of stuff in his bathroom and immediately took my kids from him. Like he didn't have them unsupervised after that point for like the next 3 years. I mean, it's only just been recently that he's like gotten that back. But it was like my whole life turned upside down immediately after we wrote that book, because at that point I had no, it was just me and my kids, because I couldn't send them over there anymore. And so it kind of flipped my world upside down for a little bit, but
My mind is completely blown because it was like we talked almost every single day throughout the book process. And then the book got published. We did the book signing. And then I had no idea that that was going on. And then I started going through my stuff. Like my situation got a bit worse. And then I got the job traveling and all that stuff. So literally, this moment right now is the first time that we're talking, probably
since then,
since you
except for,
left.
yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, except for like Instagram messages and
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah, pretty much. But it was pretty crazy. And so there was a few years after that where it was just survival mode, like
Oh my God.
just trying to survive with the kids. And I worked my ass off and bought a house
Oh,
about a year and a half ago. And
congrats.
So we're obviously in a much better place now,
Yeah.
but it was it was pretty rough for a while there. I mean, honestly, it was just survival mode. You just kind of like you go through the motions and you're just trying to survive. So
Yeah.
it's pretty I know.
I'm shocked. I had like this whole idea of where this conversation was gonna go, and I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about the book and like how that like shaped us and healed. What do you mean healed? Like after we published the book, more shit happened. Like
You know
it was
what
like,
though? I needed that win in that moment though. Like
mhm,
I needed like I feel like it kind of gave me some of my confidence back, and it was just like
mhm,
it was I don't know, just I can do something hard. Like cuz like you mentioned in your like little description thing, we posted our diaries for the entire world to see, like and and I think that that's what a lot of
oh,
people don't understand about poetry is it's not just that you write a poem to write a poem. Like you're literally writing out your feelings, at least for me, and
yeah,
and I know for you as well. Like that's that's what you do. That's when I have my creativity, and
mhm.
and those bursts of like months of writing and whatever. It's just when things are either really good or really hot, really
There's
low,
no
and
in between. I say that all the
oh.
time. It's so hard to write a poem or be in that because yes, art and creativity is usually like bright and light, but I feel like poetry is the opposite of that. It's usually very dark and it's like those feelings that you don't know how to express, that you don't know how to get out, that you literally don't want anybody to know. And
Right.
there's no there's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no structure. That's what I love about poetry too. There doesn't have to be a structure to it.
No,
It's like word vomit with your pen.
it
And
is.
I don't know if you get this question, but I've gotten the question a lot. Like, why didn't I push the book harder? Why didn't I tell more people? Like, why didn't you advertise the book more? And it's like a lot of people don't understand that the reason that I did reach out to you in the first place is because I didn't want people to know what poems I wrote. And our writing styles were so similar that we could just jumble up all the poems that we picked and nobody would have any idea to
No,
which ones
and I
were
actually
ours.
think that was your idea, and I loved it because I was beyond nervous. Like to
Mhm.
publish that book, I was so nervous. And so the fact that we literally just mixed everything up and didn't put our names on each poem,
Yeah.
like that was a huge selling point for me because it was
Yeah.
like, okay, they don't have to know that this one is me, or this
Mhm.
was a piece of my heart that I like poured out on a
Yeah.
piece of paper. So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I'm glad that we went through that process together and we kind of had each other to hide behind because I don't know about for you, but for me, being with the person that I was married to during that process, it's like when people think about an accomplishment like that, I didn't really celebrate that. Like, yes, we had the book signing and stuff, but I never like sat back and was like, holy shit, we just published a fucking book. Like, we fucking did it. It was more so like, God damn, he just wants to fight me on everything. Like, I'm not doing this to like put his name out there or like make him feel like a bad
oh
person or anything. Like, this is more so one of like my childhood dreams coming true and connecting with somebody who has a similar situation and our poetic souls match. So it's like, why not? Like, this is the perfect time for us to kind of like let go. And that was the beginning, honestly, of me like letting go of that relationship and that marriage and starting to choose myself.
no, I remember you telling me when I was down there that he was so mad about you publishing the book because he felt like you were publishing your guys' personal life, for the whole world to see. And it wasn't about him, like
No.
it was about you and doing something that you wanted and something that you were passionate about. And he couldn't see that,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I don't know.
Life with a narcissist. And then he had the audacity, people, the audacity to show up to the book signing all smiles. And I was like, why the fuck is he
With
here?
flowers and everything.
With flowers and everything. I was like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you even here? This is so fake. And he's like, I just want to support you. And I was just like, thank God I'm leaving after this. Thank
So
God I'm leaving after
did you
this.
know Did you know then that you were going to take a deployment to like go, or that was
No,
after?
that was after. So that we published in 2017. I wrote you in March. The original date was supposed to be July 17th. That's why
I
I wanted to
remember.
like film this in July. And we ended up publishing, I think, the first week of August. And then the book signing was August 19th. I left for Colorado to go to that Sam Hunt concert the 22nd
Oh
of
yeah.
August. Girl, I cried the entire concert. Like it was like all the emotions just came out and all
Just
the alcohol
yeah.
and it was a mess. And then in October, I think it was the end of October, I applied for the job, and November, I got the interview and they wanted me to start in December. But right before I applied for the job, I had actually given him divorce papers and he ripped them up. I had like my first full-blown like panic attack. I ended up in the hospital. It was a mess. And this was all like during and right after the book signing. And I was just like, I need something that's gonna take me out of here. I need a plan. I need to finally figure out how to go about this in a way that he's not going to stop me. And then I left on my deployment. I didn't tell him when I was coming back. I scheduled a lawyer meeting and I got back to Albuquerque a week before he got back from school in Chicago. I met with the lawyer, started the paperwork. The day he finished his final exam, because I was courteous and kind and I waited, the day he finished his final exam and he told me his grade, I was like, "Hey, I want a divorce." And he's like, "Okay." Like he didn't fight me on it. And then
Really?
he had the nerve to call me saying like how I deserve to be treated like a queen and like just saying all the right things that you want to hear when you should have heard them years ago. Come to
Right.
find out all he wanted was money from me because of my job. Like that divorce, peace is expensive.
Yeah,
Peace is very expensive. But I'm so
it
glad I
is.
did it.
Yeah, I was, so when we went to Albuquerque, so we separated in 2016 in May. Like I said, my son was only 3 weeks old
Mhm.
when we made the decision, and then we initially filed and tried to be nice. We tried to go like well, we can work this out ourselves route,
Mhm.
which is a mistake for literally anybody. Just so like it never works out that way.
Yeah.
And so we decided we would do it ourselves. So we filed the paperwork online, and things were okay. And then he wouldn't cooperate. He wouldn't send me like pay stubs, something basic, like things that I
Mhm.
needed to submit with our paperwork. And so it got stalled out. And I didn't realize at the time, but they'll cancel your proceedings if you don't, like, if nothing happens. So he sends me, this was like a year later, he sends me his pay stubs finally after like 6 months of me asking. He sends them to me, and I had already filed one extension, and he sent them to me like right when he found out he was losing his job. He sent me his pay stubs, and I took them to the courthouse, and they're like, "Oh yeah, your case was dismissed a week ago." And
Oh
so
my
the timing of it
God.
was just like, it was just crazy because it wasn't, not like it was super expensive to file it online. So I wasn't out much at that particular moment.
Mhm.
But then we decided, like, okay, we'll wait till you have a job again to refile. And then I found out, because we, did the book signing and all of that stuff. And I found out he was using drugs pretty heavily at that point. And so um, at that point, like I said, it was just survival mode. So then it took me another couple of months before I could hire an attorney to file paperwork for me,
Mhm.
because I wasn't going to do it myself that time. Like,
Yeah.
there was one, he was a narcissist, and two, he was a drug addict. Like, there was no reasoning with him. There was no logic that was happening there, and so
Yeah.
because he would send me these text messages, like, because I was close with his family when we were married, and they are a very close-knit family, like do holidays together and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
we tried to still be amicable about like splitting holidays with the kids and whatever. And so we had made an agreement on Christmas that year, like 2017, whatever. So a couple months after I found out he was using drugs. And we had made an arrangement, and my family had a party on Christmas Eve and his family was going to do Christmas Day with them. And he texted me and was like, hey, I need the kids, 2 hours earlier on Christmas Eve. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have plans, we have a family party. We already came to this agreement. And he was so unhinged at that particular moment. For the next 24 hours, every 30 seconds, I had a new text message to my phone calling me names, like page long messages at 2, 4 in the morning, like paragraphs long about how big of a psycho I was. Like, I mean, just unhinged, like
Oh
ranting
my
crazy.
God.
And so it was shortly after that that I decided I didn't care like what it cost me or where it put me, but I was hiring an attorney and I was getting it
Yep.
done.
Yep. I completely
And
understand.
and then it took forever still. I mean, we just barely finalized. So we separated in 2016, and my divorce was they actually bifurcated it because we still couldn't come to like agreements on custody or like financial stuff. So they bifurcated it and granted the divorce when I bought my house so that I wouldn't have to put his name anywhere on the deed or anything, because I was pretty adamant about that. Like, you don't get any
Yeah,
piece of this. Like,
for
it's
sure.
mine. I worked my butt off. So they bifurcated it and allowed the divorce part to happen without coming to a conclusion on anything else, just so I could buy the house. And that was October of 2019. So it took me over 3 years
Wow.
just to have my divorce finalized, like just to say I was divorced. So
That's
it
insane. That process. Oh my gosh.
and to be fair, part of it was me. Like, I was in such a funk and just, like I said, just drowning, just trying to survive. I didn't push things along as much as I should have either,
Mm-hmm.
because I just didn't have that little bit left to give. Like, it was the last of my worries. My worry was kids and us
Yeah.
and paying rent and doing all that stuff. And so it just, that was just so part of it was me dragging my feet a little bit, not because I didn't want to be divorced, but
Mm-hmm.
because I just
You
knew
had
it was going to
life
be
going
more.
on.
Yeah, it was just going to be that much more like stress that I couldn't take on at that particular point. So he disappeared for a pretty good chunk of time, and honestly, it was just me and the kids, and it was nice. Like, we did a trip to Canada, and I remember like crossing the border and just feeling, I don't know, it was similar to when we wrote the book, where it was just like this feeling of accomplishment. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
did this by myself with my kids, and
Yeah.
I drove us from Utah to Canada and went into another country. Like, it seemed crazy to me, like, at the time, but I just thought, there's no way I'm trying to tackle an airport with a 3 and a 1-year-old. Like, not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I thought I can do a road trip. And so we got our passports, we drove up there, and we spent a week in Banff, Canada.
Oh,
And
bucket
it was
list.
like the most magical experience of my life,
Oh,
probably because it was just exhilarating. It was just like,
yeah.
I did this, I worked my butt off and I
Mm-hmm.
saved, up and made this happen, and I don't need him, they don't need him, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it was,
Oh
it's been
my
a lot.
gosh. It has been so much. Do you still have contact with him now?
Yeah, so he ended up getting himself into some legal trouble because of his drug use. So
Mm-hmm.
he disappeared and was doing his own thing. And I, like I said, I was close with his family, and so I used to still, I would take the kids over to see his mom, and we would, so he would see them every once in a while in that setting. And then he ended up getting himself into trouble, which kind of kick-started and forced him to get his crap together. So
Yeah.
he now is he's doing a lot better. So he's still, he gets to see the kids and do all of that stuff now, but it was a rough few years. I mean, I don't think people realize, like, single mom is hard. Single momhood is hard anyway. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you add to the fact that there's nobody on the other side of that, there's no one to come help you pick up the pieces or to take them for a few hours so you can breathe. Like, there's none
Yep.
of that.
I could not
So
imagine. So through all of that, how did you start to, because all of that is is life changing. And then you have to deal with the internal emotional pieces of picking yourself back up from all of that. So, at what point did you finally start to say, like, okay, I need to start regaining myself? I need to be who I am. I need to figure out who the fuck I am and what I want for my life and for my kids. So, what was that transition like for you?
I feel like I'm still learning a little bit every day about what I want, or, who I am. I feel like I'm in a pretty good place now, but it probably was about the time that he started coming back into the picture,
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, okay, now I don't have to live entirely for my kids. I can breathe a little bit more. I can start to figure myself out, and my boyfriend, I think that he helped a lot. Like I mentioned, we were friends. We actually went to high school together. um
Aww.
and we were going through divorces at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And let me just tell you, that was a hot mess. Like, we were both so broken and messy that
Mm-hmm.
us trying to date and make those pieces work was a mess, and I was an emotional wreck. I am sure I was not easy all of the time, because I mean, I remember there was one time where he'd been trying to come hang out for weeks, and my apartment was a shit show. Like, toys everywhere that you could imagine there could be toys. And like, I just was drowning. I just felt like
Yeah.
I don't have the energy to like put this back together to host somebody. I don't want to do that. I can't,
Mm-hmm.
And so he kept asking and kept asking, and I would make up excuses like, no, I can't, And he called me one day and he said, I'm already on my way to your apartment and I don't give a shit what it looks like. I'm coming and I'll help you clean and you don't have a say in it.
Aww.
And and so he showed up and he helped me clean my entire apartment, like made me feel better about life, and then we just sat and watched Super Troopers. Like, he just was such a good friend that I needed. Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to put on a show for him. I didn't have to be somebody different. Like, I could be the giant, hot ass mess that I was, and he was going to be there anyway, and so that helped a ton. I think, like, not having to put on a show for him, like not having to feel like I had to be somebody else for him to like me.
You could
And
just be
so,
yourself.
yeah. Yeah. And we definitely always had, there were sparks there, and if you go
Mm-hmm.
look at like my poetry Instagram, like a lot of them are about him, but
Yeah.
seemed like timing was just never right there, and it was just always so hard. It felt like it was harder than it needed to be,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that through all of it, he stuck with me, whether it was hard or not. Like, he was still there. And so then we live together now, and we have a house and have our kiddos and stuff together now. But I think he was probably one of the biggest things that helped me like find myself, because
For
he used to tell
sure.
me, like, you're more than just a mom, you are a person. Like, you need to, like, I
My
I
heart is oozing right now, Alicia. My heart. I can't. I love
you
that.
know and it's not perfect, we still
Yeah.
have our struggles, and we moved in together right before COVID hit. And it was, it's challenging to try and blend a family anyway, because you have your ideas on how you want to do things with your kids, and like, everybody's different, or you have your own parenting style, and trying to find something that works together is pretty challenging. And so there were parts over the last year where I'm like, we're not going to make it, like, this is too hard,
Yeah.
because it was just, it, and it's hard too, because for him, he had his daughter, just part of the time, but then that was it. Then the rest of the time he could be him. And
Mm-hmm.
because I have my kids so much more because of my ex's history, he
Mm-hmm.
went from having some solitude and some time to be himself to like kids all the
All the
time,
time.
between mine and his, just there's always constant kids and noise. And so I think that was kind of a hard transition for him too. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
you go from being yourself to being to having to be super dad all the time or whatever, and for me that was just no big deal because
You were used to it. Yeah.
I had already had kids all the time, and so I felt like that was a little bit challenging, um but yeah, I think the pink hair is
I love it on you. Oh my gosh, you guys. She
thank you.
has her roots, her natural roots, and her hair is like a pastel mixed with like a highlighter. It's just giving me vibes. They always say when a female changes their hair, something major is about to take place.
I started dyeing it while he and I were dating, and at first I dipped my toe in the water. I had it like a little bit reddish brown at the
Mhm.
end. And then I was telling him one day, we were just sitting talking, and I was telling him, like, I don't want to have to, and I worked at a bank at the time, so I really couldn't go crazy with my hair because,
Mhm.
they wouldn't have allowed that. And so I remember telling him, like, I switched jobs and started working for the software company, and they didn't care,
Yeah.
we deal with customers, but it's on the phone. And so I was like, I want to do something crazy with my hair. Like, I want to go bold, but I don't want to like chop it all off or, like the normal
Yeah.
things you do with your hair. And he's
Yeah.
like, who cares? It's hair, like, do what you want. And so he actually kind of pushed me to dye my hair blue the first time. And and so it's been an array of colors ever since then, and I love it. It's been fun. I had rainbow hair a few
I
months
remember
ago.
that. Yeah, I love
You
that.
know, I thought that was, I'm like, okay, like the rainbow is just going to be my spirit color. Like, I'm going to love it. And I didn't
Uh-huh.
love it as much, and probably more because the upkeep of it was just
Oh,
a
I
nightmare.
can only imagine. I
But
tried
the
going
pink has
pink.
been,
I couldn't. I
uh,
couldn't do it. My hair
you
fell
couldn't do
out.
the pink.
Nope, it fell
Really?
out. Yep, I did
Oh
during quarantine
no.
last year. I got bored. I was dyeing my ex's hair and I was like, "Oh, we have leftover bleach. Let's just like put bleach in my roots like Billie Eilish and then like put it all in the ends." And we ran out of bleach, so I
Yeah.
went and bought the Splat from Target. Don't ever do that. Don't ever. My hair was like string cheese and then it was falling
Oh
out
no.
and I was just like, "Oh god. This is what quarantine life is gonna be like." Like, no.
Quarantine makes you do crazy things. Like,
Oh, yes.
I had had like pretty mild hair up until then, where it's just a little bit on the ends, and
Mhm.
then quarantine life, I'm like, screw it. Like, I'm going to Sally's, gonna buy whatever I need, and I'm dyeing my hair, and we're just gonna get it done. And actually, I was so nervous to bleach my hair for the first time because it's very dark, like naturally,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so it takes a lot to lighten it to where you can color it. And I knew, like, I don't want to be one of those, YouTube horror stories that you see where their whole head burns off, like no hair left. And so he actually did it for me the first time. Like, he helped me like bleach up on the
Aw.
a little
We
bit
love a
more.
supportive man. Shout out to
I told him,
him.
I'm like, this is the ultimate trust exercise. Like, I'm
For
giving
sure.
you like
For
a brush
sure.
with bleach and my head, and this is the ultimate trust exercise. But no, I think that, I mean, definitely he helped. But watching that podcast that you did a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
you had said something that really kind of struck me. Like, it's, obviously you want to find yourself for yourself, but I think a lot of times we find ourselves in our partners, and we find
Yes.
ourselves in our relationships. And not that I'm putting on a show with him or anything like that, because obviously he saw all of the nightmare,
Mhm.
but I do think that in a lot of cases, you kind of, at least for me, I've realized and had to do some thinking after hearing you say that, but I realized that in a lot of cases, I mold myself to fit the situation or who I'm with, and not the other way around. It's not,
Yep.
this is who I am, take it or leave it. It's, okay, well, I'll make this adjustment here and this adjustment
Mhm.
here and this adjustment
As long as the
here.
other person's happy, then you're happy because you find your happiness in their happiness. And then one day you wake up and you're just like, "Who am I?"
I know. Sorry, my dogs just decided to start barking.
Oh, no, you're fine, hun. Um,
um,
but yeah, that's
but yeah,
that's definitely a challenge. Being a relationship chameleon is what I call it because I
yeah,
struggle with that even not even in like romantic situations. It could be with anybody that I love and that I care about when I'm with that person, I will cater to their needs rather than think about my own. If they want to do something and I particularly don't want to do it, I'll just bite my tongue and just put on a smile and go with it because, again, I find my happiness in making other people happy. And it's a constant reminder and an exercise, at least for me, that I need to wake up every morning and be like, okay, what do I want? What do I need? How am I going to fill my cup up before I fill other people's cups up? So,
Yep. And that's something I struggle with every day. It's like
mhm.
my kids, or, like I feel like I am always so willing to give so much of myself, and I'm not good at setting those boundaries for myself and saying,
Whew,
nope.
boundaries.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's, and it's harder than it sounds to be like, okay, this is what I want for the day, or this is what I want to eat for dinner. I mean, just something super simple
Or
like that. Like,
simple. Yep.
this is what I want, but well, you want that. So, well, I guess that's okay. Like, I can find something I like, and so
Mhm.
I don't know. And not that stuff like that is a big deal, you pick your battles, obviously, but
It's the little
in
things that
general,
add up.
mhm, yeah, I do the same thing. Like, I heard you say that, and it hit me hard. I'm like, damn, like that. Like, I never realized it was that bad, and then I started
Mhm,
thinking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, I do the exact same thing.
mhm.
So
Our souls are
that's
still
definitely,
connected.
they are. No, I think, I mean, I don't know. That's one of the things that has always kind of resonated with me. Like, we wrote that book together because we swapped poetry. Like, I don't know if anybody, if people know that, but like, we met in that Facebook group for photography,
Mhm.
and you had posted randomly like, hey, does anyone else have any other hobbies? Like, what other things do you like to do? And you wrote, hey, I write poetry. And so then it kind of started, a couple people started writing back and forth and swapping poems, but you were the most consistent with it. And we shared poetry back and forth, and I felt like everything of yours I read was just, it just hit home. It's like, okay, well,
Mhm.
I felt that exact same way, and I think, I'm not going to get it right. There's a quote that I love, that says something like, basically, the goal of poetry is to make the reader feel something in himself, that, based on your writing, like basically to feel what you've
Yeah.
written. And I felt like that with all your poetry. And so then, like you had mentioned, we didn't talk for a couple months after we had initially done that. And then you randomly wrote me one day and said, hey, do you want to write a book together?
That is
and
so crazy.
and I don't think I even hesitated. It was like,
Mm-mm.
well, do I?
You
Yeah,
were
sure.
like,
What do I need
"Sure.
to do?
Yep. Yep."
Yep.
That's exactly what you wrote me. And I was, like, reading it back and I was like, "Holy shit, we literally just dove headfirst into this." And it wasn't like we didn't give it a second thought. We were just like, "Okay, so what are the next steps after this?" And I remember working full time and then going through my journals because, like, I had been writing since I was, like, 12. And I stopped for a little bit, and then when I got married, that's when I started to pick it back up because, of course, you do your best writing when you're
Yeah.
really depressed, really drunk, really, really sad. Everything just flows out like word vomit, and I think the hardest part was, like, trying to pick out the poems because I think we were doing, like, 25 each at first, and then it turned into, like, it was, like,
Yeah.
50 something each by the end of it because we couldn't choose, and I think the one thing that I regret about that process is still having my ex in the back of my mind and not publishing the ones that I really wanted to. Do you have any regrets
Yeah.
about that
And
process?
um, not necessarily any regrets. I do feel like there were some that I held back, though, same as you, where it was just like,
Mhm,
that one's a little too personal. Like, I don't think I can share that one yet. Like, I wasn't ready to put those words out there, and so,
mhm.
um I did put some personal ones, but I also included some from like high school, where life
Yeah,
really didn't
same.
matter.
Yeah, just like,
It's like,
these
okay,
little
this
words,
one's safe,
Yeah,
yeah, this
yeah.
one's safe. It's in high school. Like, it wasn't real life back then, and so, I definitely feel like there was some of that on my side too, where it's just like, okay, I can't put that one in there. Like, I don't have it in me to share that one yet, so,
For sure.
um, And I think I've tried to be better. I haven't been very consistent. I'd like to write more,
Mhm.
and, kind of explore that passion and see what I can make of it, and I started an Instagram page for my writing, and I just haven't been super consistent with it, but that's something that I would like to do
Yeah.
moving forward, is just really put an emphasis on it. I've started writing short stories as well.
Oh.
And I submitted one into a contest a few weeks ago, and I didn't win, but
But at
that's
least you
okay.
did it. At least you took
Yes.
that step. You had faith in yourself and you were like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So I entered that contest in, and it's prompted me to like start writing more short story stuff.
Mm,
And I've written a couple of other, just like more for my kids, but like children's stories, and
mm,
things like that are more for them. They're just kind of silly and fun or whatever. So I don't know if I'd want to explore doing something like that. Most of my poetry is rhymey, and so it's made that a lot easier, to write
mhm.
children's stuff because it's rhymey and cutesy and whatever. But
Yeah.
it's not anything I'm like passionate about, it's just kind of
Mhm.
more for fun. So
Yeah. Would you ever go back down the publishing route again by yourself this time?
I don't know. I definitely liked the process that we went through, but I felt like, I don't know, I would like to find a way to put it out there more. Like, I think that that's probably one of the things that, and I know that we obviously had our own life, like stuff that
Mhm.
was going on at that time, and so putting it out there is, and making it more publishable, or like, I don't know, more
More
marketable.
accessible to, yeah.
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 I feel like that's something that I probably would want more next time, just so that
Mhm.
it's more out there and we can reach more people. But that would probably be, so I don't know if the company we used would be the right platform for that, or if I'd
Oh,
have to
no, not
find
at
something.
all. Not at all. After like looking back, that process was very like we could have done it ourselves because we did it ourselves. You did the cover art. We found the glyphs that we wanted to use for the cover. And then I put everything together in Publisher and gave it to them. And all they did was bind it all together and package it up. Like,
Yeah, there was even a couple of things that I found after the fact that I was like, they should have caught that in their editing process or whatever. Like,
oh my
even just
God.
the layout.
Yep. Yep, the layout is what kills me. I was like, what the fuck were we thinking? Like, this hurts my eyes to look at. Like some pages I'm just
Well,
like, this is
yeah,
out
some
of
of the pages
center.
are like,
Like,
yeah, they're on the wrong side. And so it's like, they should
yes.
have got that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that at least for me personally, when people are like, "Oh, you published a book?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Why don't you talk about it?" I don't want to relive that. I feel like I put it out when it needed to be put out. I released it from myself, and that was the process of publishing it. And I just let it burn. Like, just it does what it
Yeah.
does, and I
Yeah.
don't ever foresee myself like going back and like really pushing the book. I've always wanted to
Yeah.
buy a couple of copies and like leave them randomly, like in airports or like coffee shops, and
I
just like.
actually remember you telling me that because you were traveling a lot more back then, and you're like,
Mm,
I'm just going to leave one in every hotel room, or just randomly
that's
leave
what
in
I
coffee
did.
shops, stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I definitely did.
Well, I still
So
have a box of those books, so maybe I'll just start sprinkling them around like glitter.
just do it. Do it. I'm down to my last two now. A couple of people when I was deployed overseas bought a couple of copies, and then I had one girl when I was like shooting photography back then. She gave it to her friend who was going through a breakup, and she stopped me at the wedding and she's like, "Oh my God, like you're the author of this book. Marissa gave it to me. Like it's helped me so much through my breakup." And I was like, "Okay, that's it. That's the one person that I needed to affect. I feel accomplished in this
Right.
moment." Yeah.
No,
So,
I actually remember, I feel like I remember reading a post where you'd posted, kind of the feedback you'd gotten from her. And I think that that's really, that's the goal of writing. Like, you want to be able to touch someone, you want to be able to make a difference in their life. And you also want to be able to get your feelings out and your thoughts out, and, just express yourself that way. At least, for me, I feel like that's why I write, is to
mhm.
express myself, or sometimes for my sanity.
For sure,
But
sometimes you just need to let it out. Just let it out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I write and I don't even read what I write. Like I just close it. I was like, oh, it's gone. I don't have to think about it anymore.
I have a couple of like running Word documents on my phone that I'll add to when something hits, when the inspiration hits. And so I have a
Yep.
couple for poetry and then some for just random thoughts or things that I want to expand upon or whatever. So that's how I get them out. And then not all
Hmm.
of them are usable or anything that I
For
would
sure.
do anything, but it's just a way for me to get out that like burst or that thought, in
Mhm.
that moment.
So what's next for you though? Because we talked a little bit before this about you wanting to transition into like your next chapter, either for your career, for your creativity, or for your passion. So what is next for Alisha May?
I think that, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I want to start, being able to be more free to do those things that I love or the things that I am passionate about. Instead of having to work for someone else or
Whew,
work
say it one more
a
time for the people in the back.
9 to 5. Yeah, just working a 9 to 5 is great, and it saved my ass and helped me get through the last few years of my life.
Mhm.
Obviously I needed the income, I needed the stability, but it doesn't spark my creativity, and it's challenging. I mean, with COVID, I worked from home, which was awesome. I'm so grateful that I had somewhere that I worked where I was able to do that, because I was able to be home with my kids, but it was hard. I felt like I worked 3 times as hard working from home as I ever did in the office, just to get things done, just to make ends meet,
Yeah.
hit the goals that were set for me or whatever. And not that, I don't know, it's as much that they were putting pressure on me, but I guess I felt more like, well, if they're letting me work from home, I have to work harder to like
Yeah.
show them that I'm productive or show them that I'm doing what
Mhm.
and I added so much stress onto my plate. Like, I lost a lot of myself in that process just because I you know my boyfriend used to get mad or my kids would get frustrated because it would be 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I would still be typing out emails and working, and it's like, okay, at some point you have to clock out. Like, we need to eat dinner, we need
Yeah.
to move on with our lives. Like, there was no work and home life balance anymore. It was just work. And
Work.
because it was right here, I just roll out of bed and turn on my computer. I would start working the second I would wake up, and I would work until I had to get offline to cook dinner, and I just can't do that anymore. Like,
Yeah.
my kids deserve more of my time. I deserve more of my time.
Yes.
And so I need something different. I think I just, and I would love to be able to do something creative, something that,
Mhm.
something that involves writing, or just find something else that where I can be more free to be myself and find myself, I think so.
For sure. I love that. Hopefully we can have you back on the podcast talking about your new business, your new venture. That would be freaking amazing. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Through everything that you've been through and throughout your journey, what is one of the biggest lessons that you take away that you wish you would have known?
Hmm. There are so many life lessons that I've learned in just the last, 3, 4 years. But
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things one of the biggest struggles that I had, or one of the things that I really had to like figure out a way to work around or get over, is the fact that I never in my life before this thought of myself as a control freak, but going through the divorce and all of that stuff,
Mhm.
when I had no control of anything at all, and I literally just felt like everything was chaos and I was drowning, I I had to learn, or to reteach myself, I guess, that you can't force things to happen. I mentioned that me and
Mhm.
my boyfriend were a hot ass mess trying to make things work when we were going through divorces and our lives were individually blowing up. And I tried so hard to force pieces there, or to like make it,
Make
try to
it make
make it work.
sense. Yeah.
And it didn't. And it ended up, it would get messier and uglier, and it was just like, it was just so much stress that I added into the mix. And same with my kids. I feel like when I try to force too much control of a situation or force control of, my kids love art and love being creative,
Yeah.
which is probably because that's what we did. We would have
Mhm.
paint time and whatever. But if I try to direct too much what they're doing or have control over their process,
Mhm.
they're painting one, they don't love it as much, and then it doesn't end up turning out, with anything that I love either. And so I think just in general in life, like when I try to force too much control of a situation, or I try to work too hard to make something fit instead of just letting it happen organically or just going with the flow, I think that it makes a
Mhm.
bigger mess of whatever the situation is, so that would probably be the biggest takeaway that I have.
Oh, I love that. Definitely. Cause I am a fellow control freak. If I feel like my life is being spun out of control, I need to find one aspect of my life that I can control. And that's usually very dangerous. Um, and I just love that we had the time to have this conversation.
Me too. It was long overdue.
Oh, so long overdue. And it's so funny that we're so extreme because our catch up is my first episode of the podcast. Like, hey, yeah, we haven't talked in forever, but here, let me put it out for the world once again. Once
You know, I,
again.
I was gonna say it's like you said, it's everything coming full circle. So I think it was I'm glad. I'm super grateful that I got to be the first podcast, but I'm excited to see where this takes you. Like I think that it's a great idea, and I think we need more just genuine organic conversations about life
For
and people's
sure.
struggles, because you never know. You see 100 people in a day if you go to the store, and you never know what they're going through or what they've been through.
Yep.
And so I love it. I love that you're going to get to have those conversations and share those people, share people's experiences. I think that that's amazing. So
Oh, thank
I'm
you
excited for
so
you.
much. Thank you. Let my what do you call them? Like followers, listeners, subscribers, where to find you and your writing and your poetry.
So I have two public Instagrams that I use. And again, I need to be a little more consistent with them. But one of them is Alisha May .writes. It used to be poetry, but I changed it since I've kind of changed my direction with my writing and stuff. And the other one is Amanita Avenue, which is more just in general. I created it to be kind of a creative outlet where I could share like photography stuff that I had done.
Mhm.
And then also I crochet and knit as well. And so it's just kind of somewhere where I could go and share that kind of stuff, and not have it be my Instagram where my kids'
Yeah.
pictures are and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's more of a public one. So there are those two places.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, hun. We have to catch up more often. This can't just be a podcast or once every couple of years thing. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.